Hi everyone, this is Christopher Golden, the other developer working on Falconet. I'm the designer of this game. I also do the graphics, the animations, the sound effects, and music. Daniel is also a designer, but his primary role is the programmer. So he's been uploading some devlog videos, but I decided that I should upload a video of my own just to talk about the design of the game. It's not so much a devlog, it's not me showing new features of this alpha build of Falconet, but it's to show players just what makes this game different from other games, because we're not here to make yet another twin stick shooter like every other twin stick shooter out there. We're trying to do something unique and interesting, because some of the, well, not just twin stick shooters, but some of the other games released on Steam at the moment, the more popular ones are the ones that are very, like, particularly retro style indie games. uh, they have some kind of unique element to them, and we want to try to convey, or rather I want to convey in this video, what we think this unique aspect of Falconet is. So as you can see, we got multiple weapons. You got your typical blaster, you got your torpedo, your beam, sorry, not your beam, your railgun. This is your beam. And they all have their strengths and weaknesses. And most people will generally just stick to the default weapon, so-called quote-unquote default weapon. But in Falconet, there's no such thing as a default weapon. You might look at this blaster and be like, well, that's a very normal looking weapon, therefore this is the one you use the most. Well, no, you don't use this weapon the most. When I play test Falconet, I do not use this weapon the most, not even close. And that's because it's not about picking your favorite weapon and being like, I think I like this one, I'm gonna keep using it. That's kind of like playing a first-person shooter where you have three weapons. You've got a shotgun, assault rifle, and a pistol. I mean, do you pick the pistol and go, I'm gonna keep using this for the rest of the game? Yeah, it's possible you could beat the game like that, but you're playing it the most unfun way possible. It's the same with Falconet. If you just pick one weapon, yeah, it's serviceable. You probably could beat the game, although there are some elements in this game that will require the player to switch between weapons. But it's the most unfun way to play this game. So try to think of this game as not just a normal shooter. And I think that this is not really a design problem in other games. I think it's more of a cultural problem, meaning that every time we see a 2D shooter, usually you have one weapon, and maybe you have some kind of special weapon that you can use occasionally, like a big bomb or a shield or something like that. But in Falconet, try to think of it more like a fighting game. So you don't just use a punch, or you don't just use a kick, or you don't just use sweep, or just a roundhouse kick. You use all of your kicks and punches and special moves and stuff. And it's the same with Falconet. You don't just stick with one weapon, because look how long it takes to destroy this generator. Same with this weapon. It's a powerful weapon, but look how long it takes to destroy that generator. And the rail is very powerful, so maybe in 2 shots it would be destroyed. Yeah, 2 shots. But you can see how long it takes to recharge. I'm literally holding down the fire button all the time. And the beam is like, a lot of people might think, oh, this is so overpowered because it can go anywhere. Yeah, it's overpowered, but it's also the weakest weapon. I mean, just look how long that takes. It's even weaker than the blaster. So that's sort of like the boring way of doing it. We also have some color-coded door generators here, so that you can tell which generator is for what. But recently, it was actually Daniel's idea to, well, let's try to find other ways to encourage players to use different weapons more often, or to teach the player that sometimes you need to use a different weapon in a certain situation. And he did that by assigning colors to, well, I mean, these always had colors to be linked to that particular, like here, this door here is green, and this generator up here is green as well. So destroying this one will open that door. But when you shoot it, nothing's gonna happen, and that's because this is one of the things why you're encouraged to use other weapons. You need to switch to the right color. So in this case, it's green. So use a green weapon, and it will destroy it instantly. Well, I mean, like obviously a blaster will take a little bit longer because it's not as strong as a railgun. Railgun's the strongest weapon in your arsenal. But other than that, the one of the concerns we kind of had was that, you know, there are colorblind people, and it turns out that a relatively large percentage of people are colorblind. I think the average is something like 3 or 4% of the human population, which is actually quite a lot. That's one out of 24 people. So we decided that we should limit the color thing to just the door generators, and maybe we'll assign we'll have a color matching mechanic with a particular weak-ish type of enemy. But with all the other enemies, you can use any weapon you want to destroy them. But you'll be very inefficient if you just use one weapon. So remember how long it took for me to destroy these generators with one weapon? Well, let's say that I am going to use the blaster followed by... sorry, not the blaster. The torpedo followed by the rail, with the blaster being as a buffer in between those weapons. So let's see how long it takes to destroy this generator. Very quick. See that? So that's the thing about Falconet, is that, you know, when you fire a weapon like the torpedo, for instance, you can fire the rail immediately, or when you fire the rail, you can fire the blaster, because the rail takes a bit of time to recharge. But as long as your other weapons have recharged, like your torpedo, you always have something to fire at that exact moment. So it's important to keep in mind that the more efficient you are, the more lethal you are. And the more lethal you are, the higher your score is. You see combo 676, I think it said. If you destroy multiple enemies at the same time, you get a combo. And sure, those enemies are weak, but as you progress through the game, you'll come across more powerful enemies, and you're gonna have to find ways to destroy them quicker in order to get a higher combo. Now, of course, if you're one of those people that doesn't care for a scoring system, then that's fine. You can ignore it. It's not forcing you to play the game in a certain way. But the real reason why you would want to, do combo of weapons is simply because it's just more fun destroying something super quickly. So here we've got a hawk. Sorry, not a hawk. It's called a raptor. The hawk is actually the larger variant of this enemy, and he actually fires physical torpedoes. Because if I were to use, like, let's say, a slow weapon like the rail, right? The rail isn't going to be powerful enough to destroy him, and as you can see, while the rail is recharging, you're going to get hammered by this thing constantly all the time. So in this case, we need something faster than the rail. So the blaster is perfect for that. The blaster destroys the missiles that the Raptor's been firing with, because it's a physical object. Like, energy-based projectiles cannot be destroyed by other weapons, except there is one exception, and I'll show it to you now. So let's say that you have, let's say you want to shoot a torpedo, but you want the torpedo to explode right next to that enemy over there. Well, what you could do is you could just use the rail to detonate it, as you can see there. Or you could use the beam. However, the beam in a later build of this game isn't going to detonate the torpedo instantly. It's going to take a little bit longer, because, again, the beam is the weakest weapon of the lot, and it takes a while for it to overload the projectile of the torpedo. And as you can see, this generator here is blue, so you have to use your blue weapon, but it has to be a blue generator, because it's the only weapon that can go through a wall. So everything here is there for a reason. And some of you might be like, well, it's all well and good, Chris, but how are we supposed to know this? And yeah, that's a fair point. We're still trying to figure out the best way to communicate this to players. And it seems to be quite a struggle trying to get people to play these games in this way. Because even though this design had been conceived in 2018, it's actually nice to know that in 2020, Doom Eternal, which came out in that year, had shown that you can have a mechanic like that where you just, where you destroy monsters a lot quicker by switching between weapons to be more efficient at eliminating those monsters. And so I'm glad that we have a AAA developer like id Software that's really trying to bring in the fun zone into these shooters, which is what they refer to as doing the weapon combo thing. The fun zone, I think, is a good name for it because it refers to a concept of that this is the most fun way that you can play the game. But they had their way and their fair share of challenges of trying to explain or try to teach the player on how to use these weapons at their full potential. Now, the real inspiration to Falconet is Radiant Silvergun, which is this game from 1998. It's actually a shoot 'em up. It's not a twin stick shooter. But in that game, you can switch weapons on the fly, and each weapon isn't, like you don't cycle through weapons because that takes too long. But each weapon was assigned to their own separate button, and it was like a revelation when I played that game. Let's see, when did I play it? I think it was 2012 when I first played it. And when I realized that there are multiple weapons mapped to a single button, that's when I realized that, wow, this fixes so many problems that so many other games suffer from, like with Mega Man. Like, Mega Man doesn't really encourage the player to use the other weapons often because it's so tedious to cycle through those weapons. And I think that, with controllers nowadays, we've got like, at the very least, 8 buttons on the controller. So why don't we use them? Obviously, in the case of Falconet, we only use the 4 trigger buttons, the 4 shoulder buttons, because you want the player to be able to hold down the fire button by holding in a direction on the right analog stick, and switch weapons at the same time without having the thumb let go of the analog stick. And because most people would just assign this, the weapon cycling through through multiple weapons using the face buttons. But no, the shoulder buttons may seem a bit strange and weird, but it does make a lot of sense when it comes to trying to do combos of attacks, and we think that this is a solid foundation. Our challenge is that we need to develop a level that will teach players how to use it and encourage players to use it in that way, so that again, like with id Software, id Software's Doom Eternal, they can get into the fun zone. So thank you all for listening. I hope that you guys will check out this prototype of Falconet. You can download it on itch. I'll put the link in the description below. I'll also include a link to our website, irukasoftware.com, and right at the bottom of the homepage there's a link to our Discord if you also want to join that. And until next time.